Hello guys and welcome to my channel. So in this video we are going to be covering the 2020 Elective ICT Practical question number 2, and this is an HTML question. So in this question we are going to be creating a table. We'll talk about the structure of a table and how to go about and putting in data and other stuff. So this sounds interesting and let's get right into it. Alright, so welcome back once again. And here before us is the question we are going to be working on. Let's quickly read through the question, then we get started with the solution. So 2 of the Elective ICT 2022 practical question. A continuous assessment report created by a teacher is shown in figure 1. So this is figure 1, the continuous assessment text, and then the table below. All that is figure 1. Now let's continue. Using an appropriate text editor, A. Write the HTML code to produce the document in figure 1. B. Use heading level 1 for continuous assessment. C. The title of the document should be Class 1 Assessment. D. Add a third entry to the table with your index number and full name for the index number and candidate columns respectively. Assign yourself any marks for the two subjects. And finally, F says, save the work as assessment.html in the folder created. So this is the whole question. And usually, of course, the first thing we do is to create the folder in which we are going to save our work in. So you go back to your desktop, and on your desktop, you're going to create a folder. So you just create one real quick. Then the name of your folder would be your initials and index number. So I'm going to use something like JW and then 101010 like that. So this is the folder in which we are going to save our work as assessment.html in. Now after you've created a folder, the next thing we need to talk about is the appropriate text editor. Now I believe the appropriate text editor to use is Notepad++, but there are cases where during the practical exams, some of the computers will not have it installed. So some students are made to use the normal notepad that you find on your Windows operating system. So for such situations, I've decided to also use Notepad for this tutorial because using Notepad is a bit different. You have to do things manually, unlike using the appropriate text editor, which helps you in many ways. So I want to help those who may not have it by using Notepad so that they can follow along. So since I'm going to be using Notepad, I'm going to launch it real quick. I'll search it up and I'll just launch it like that. So yes, I've launched Notepad, and let me reduce the windows a bit. So I'll have my question on the right and then my Notepad application window on the left. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to start typing the HTML code. So I made a tutorial on this, on HTML, and I believe you should watch that one before coming to watch this, but nevertheless, I'll still go through it from the beginning. So now, whenever you're trying to type in HTML code, the first thing you need to type is what we call the doc type declaration. So what is the doc type declaration? The doc type declaration, what it does is it tells the browser or the computer that the document you are writing or the document is HTML. Because we are going to write HTML code, we need to specify the document type because there are many different document types, and the doc type declaration helps us do that. So how do we do that? How do we type the doc type declaration? So you start out with a less than sign, then an exclamation mark, then you type in the text doc type followed by the text HTML and a greater than sign. So what you see over here is the doc type declaration. The doc stands for document. So in simple English, you could say that the document type is HTML. That is what a doc type declaration means. Now, after you type in the doc type declaration, the next thing is to type in the HTML root element, because everything about HTML must be in the root element. It's like the foundation of your HTML code. So how do we type that? First of all, let me zoom in a bit so that you can look at the code clearly. Yeah, so this is what the HTML element looks like. You start out with a less than sign, then you type in the text HTML and a greater than sign. But that is not the end. you type in a less than sign once again, and this time a forward slash, then you type in the text again, HTML, and a greater than sign. So this that I've highlighted, this is what you call the HTML element. But there's also something to note. Individually, this over here, what I'm highlighting currently, is called the HTML open tag. So individually they are called tags. So the one without the forward slash and the one with the forward slash, they are called tags. But if you want to be specific, the one without the forward slash is the opening tag, and the one with the forward slash is the closing tag. And in between is where you're going to put in your HTML code. So you just press the enter key about 2 times, and you're going to put it in between the opening and closing tag of the HTML element. So let's take this once again. And when they are together, it is called an element, but individually they are called tags. So this is a tag, this is also a tag. The specific name for this tag is the opening tag of the HTML element, or the HTML opening tag. And then the one down here is the HTML closing tag. Another thing to note in HTML is that not all elements have a closing tag. And so that is something you can research about. In this tutorial, I don't think we'll be using such elements, so you can research about it to get more info. Anyway, back to the tutorial. After you've typed in your HTML root elements, we now need to type in some HTML code inside HTML root element. Now, before you even get started with anything, you must understand that an HTML document has a structure. Inside the HTML document, there is a head section and there is a body section. So after you've typed in the HTML root element, you need to create that structure. And the way you do it is you're going to use other HTML elements to do that, to create the structure. So you're going to start out with a head section. And I'll also introduce something called indentation. So indentation is basically creating space to make your code readable and beautiful. So how do we go about indentation? Now, if you were on an appropriate text editor, like say Notepad++, you just have to press your tab key once and it will create a decent amount of space. But you see that when I press it on Notepad, it created too much space. Like this space is too much. And so you have to do it manually by pressing the spacebar key. So I'll suggest if you're on Notepad, just press the spacebar key 2 times. So you just press it 1, 2. And then after you've done that, that is indentation and it helps make your code readable. You'll see it later on what I mean. So after you've created your indentation, you're going to create a head section using an HTML element called the head element. So this is what it looks like. A less than sign, the text head, then a greater than sign. Now the head element has a closing tag as well. So the closing tag is the same thing like what we have with the HTML. So basically, as I was saying earlier, the opening tag, it doesn't have a forward slash before it, but you see that the closing tag has a forward slash. So that is how you differentiate. Whenever you see a forward slash before the tag name or the tag text, you know that that is the closing tag. But when you see it without the forward slash, you know that that's the opening tag. So yes, once again, this is the head element, which represents the head section of our HTML document. Inside the head element is where you're going to put in information about your document. So an example of such information would be the title of your document. When you look into the question at 2C, it says what? The title of the document should be Class 1 Assessment. So you are going to do that inside the HTML element, the HTML head element, sorry. So I'm going to copy this, yes. And then inside it, I'm going to create a title. So how do we go about creating a title? After you've created the HTML head element, inside it you're going to have to now create a title. So to do that, you have to use another element called the title element. So you can see that in HTML there are a lot of elements which do a lot of things, and that is something you should also research about. So how do we go about doing that? So first, let's press the enter key about 2 times. Now make sure that you also indent the closing tag of the head element. So you press the spacebar key 2 times, 1, 2. So you can see that the indentation is the same. Now, since we are going to create the title inside the head section, we also have to indent it. So this time we are going to indent it 4 times, and I'll explain it a bit later on. So press the spacebar key 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we are going to use the title element, which is just like the other, with an opening and a closing tag. So it looks like this: a less than sign, the text title, a greater than sign, then you add a closing tag, which has a forward slash. So a less than sign, forward slash, the text title, and a greater than sign. So this is the title element. And of course, this is the opening tag of the title element, and this is the closing tag of the title element. In between it, you're going to put in your title. So in this case, it's going to be what? Class 1 assessment. That is going to be the title of your HTML document. Now, before we check the changes, I want to explain indentation clearly. So have you noticed that any tag I put inside another tag, I indent it? This is for readability purpose, and it also makes your code look more organized and beautiful. So for example, the title element, because I placed the title element inside the head element, I indented it by 2 spaces. And because the head element is inside the HTML element, I also indented it. So it means that if there was another HTML element I placed inside the title element, I would also have to indent that element. That is how indentation works. So yes, after you've done all this, the next thing you want to do is the body section. But before we do that, I want us to check the changes. Okay, so first let's save this document. Go to File and click on Save As. Now it should open this dialog box for you. And what you want to do is you want to locate the location where you created your folder. So in that case, it's going to be your desktop. So if you're not on your desktop, you can just look at the options here. Then you select desktop. And when you're on your desktop, you want to locate the folder. So this is the folder I created. Double click it. Okay. Now when you double click it, you need to now give the file a name. According to the question, it says what? Assessment.html. So that is what you want to type there. You want to type assessment.html. Good. And then the next part is the most important part. That is the save as type. If you don't change it, it's going to save as a text document. But the thing is that we want to save it as an HTML document. So you're going to click on it and you're going to select all files. Then click on save. Now we've saved it successfully. Let's open it. So let's go back to our desktop. And then we are going to double click to open the folder. Now you see that when we open the folder, we see assessment.html. And you can see that the icon should look like your default browser. So my default browser is Brave. Brave is the browser I use. If your default browser is Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge, then you should see that icon as your HTML. You should see that icon instead. And even when you look at the type, it says what? Brave HTML document. So this is how you know that you've created a document successfully. Anyways, double click it. And that should open your browser for you. Yes, so it has opened my browser. And you see that at the top here, we see what? Class 1 assessment. So that is the title we created. Let me open this. So now let me intentionally remove the title. And now let me save the changes. Now let's refresh it. So by default, the title of your HTML document would be the same as your file name, the file name that you use for the document. So remember, we use assessment.html. But you see that when we included a title here and we saved it and we refresh, it changed to what? Class 1 assessment. Class 1 assessment. So that is how you create a title in HTML. Now, after you have done with let me close all these things. Yes. So after you are done with the head section and the title, the next part is the body section. Now, what is the body section for? The body section basically contains the visible part of your web page or your HTML document. So once again, the head section contains information about the document. The body section contains the visible part of your document. So how do we create a body section? The body section has the same level of indentation as the head element. So you just press the spacebar key, then you indent 2 times. That is 1, so you press the spacebar key 2 times. Then you create the body element like this. So that is the opening tag of the body element. Then the closing tag, you make sure you indent properly, 1, 2, and then the closing tag. So this is the body element, and this is the basic structure of an HTML document. The doc type declaration, the HTML root element, and inside it we have the head element, then the body element. So the head element contains information about our HTML document. Example is the title, and then the body contains the visible part of our document. So when you look on your browser, you see that there's this whole white space. Let me even open it clearly. You see that apart from the menu you have on top and then the search bar here, you see that there is this whole blank white space. That is the body section, the visible part of your web page. And that is what we are going to work on next. That is where we are going to put in the table, the continuous assessment, and so on and so forth. So yes, so let's continue. So inside the body section, we are going to put in all that stuff. Now let's follow the question once again. So we start at A. It says write the HTML code to produce the document in figure 1. That is what we are doing currently. Then B. Use heading level 1 for continuous assessment. So that is what we are going to do next. So this text over here, continuous assessment, it is telling us to use heading level 1. So what is heading level 1? In HTML, we have 6 heading levels. Heading level 1 is the largest and heading level 6 is the smallest. So how do we go about using heading level 1? I'll show you next. Let's go back to our HTML code, and then we are going to do that inside the body element. Now because this heading level 1 is going to be inside the body element, we have to indent our code. So how many times? About 4 times. 1, 2. If you indent it 2 times, it's going to be on the same level as the body and the head element. But because this heading level 1 is supposed to be inside the body, we need to indent again. So we press the spacebar key 2 times. If you were on an appropriate text editor, you'd press the tab key 2 times. Yes. So yes, inside the body element, we are going to create a heading level 1. And here's how you do it. A less than sign, H1. A greater than sign. Then you add a closing tag, which is the same thing with a forward slash. So a less than sign, forward slash H1, and a greater than sign. So that is how you do it. H stands for heading, and then the level is what we have here, 1. So as I was saying, we have H1 up to H6. H1 is the largest and H6 is the smallest. So you can even practice with it. You can create H1, then you copy, you paste, then you change it to 2 or 3. So you can change it to 2, then you put in some text in between and test it out yourself. Then you see the difference. So you can practice with that too. So basically, after you've created a H1 element, you're going to put in the text what? Continuous assessment. So I'm going to copy that real quick. Now paste it in between the 2 tags. That is the opening and the closing tag. And then you're going to paste it here, continuous assessment. Now let's check the changes on our browser. So we go to our browser, and then to refresh, you either press F5 or you click on this icon which says reload this page. Now when you reload the page or you refresh it, you notice that there is no change. The reason is because we didn't save the changes. So this is one thing I like to always talk about. Whenever you make a change to your HTML document, you need to make sure that you save it. If you don't save it, it will not reflect. So in order to save it, you use the shortcut of Ctrl+S, or you just go to File and click on Save. Yes, so now that we've saved it, let's go to our browser again and now let's refresh. And you can see after we saved it and we refreshed, now we are seeing the changes, continuous assessment. And this is how it looks like. This is header 1. You know what, let me show you header 2. And I'll leave the rest for you to practice. So I'm going to copy and paste this. I'll indent it properly and I'll change this from header 1 to header 2. The same text. Now let's save it and have a look. So you can see header 1 is on top and header 2 is beneath it. And you can see that header 2 is way smaller than header 1. So you can imagine how small header 6 is. So yes, this is just something I wanted to show. Anyway, let's continue with the tutorial. Yes, so we are done with B and we are also done with C. Now the next part, D, is telling us to add a third entry to the table, but we've not even created a table yet, so we cannot do that. Which means that the next thing we need to do is to create the table. Then we'll add our third entry. Okay, so we are going to create a table, and how do we do that? In order to create a table, we need to use another element in HTML. And this time we are going to be using the HTML. Actually, we are going to be using the table element. Yes, so after the header 1 element, you press the enter key, then you indent 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're going to type the table element, TABLE. That is the opening tag of the table element, and it also has a closing tag. So you're going to do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. So yes, there's the opening, and then there's the closing tag of the table element. Now when you save it, you're not going to notice any changes in the browser. So you refresh, you don't see anything. Yes. So we need to continue. Yes. So now that we've created a table section, we also need to talk about the structure of a table. Now the structure of a table is similar to the structure of this HTML document. You see that in the HTML document, you have a head section and then a body section. The same thing is with a table. The table has a head section and a body section. When you look into the question, you notice that we have index number, candidate, subject, English, mathematics. And you notice that they are all bold, but the text under it is normal. So we can say that these bold text, they are like column titles or the table titles or heading. And then the text that are under it are the table data. So basically, in an HTML table, you have the table head and the table body. In the table head, obviously you're going to put in your table heading, and then in the table body, you're going to put in the table data. It's reasonable, right? So inside the table element, you're going to indent about 6 times. 1, 2. When you indent 2 times, it's going to be on the same level as the body element. When you indent 2 times again, it's going to be on the same level of header 1 and header 1 and then the table element. But because what we want to do is inside the table element, we have to indent again. So we indent 2 times again. And then we are going to create the table head section using the the table head element. So it looks something like this, a less than sign, T head. Simple like that. Then the closing tag, just like that. So there's going to be the table head section. Now inside the table head section, we have to create a row, because table consists of rows and columns. So you see that in the first row, we have index number, candidate, and then subject. Then you can see that there's another row, English and mathematics. It's also a row in another row. It's like, I don't know, should I say a sub row? Yes. So you have to create 2 rows inside the table head. So I'm going to do that real quick. So in the table head, we are going to create a row. To create a row, we use the TR element. So the TR element is like this, a less than sign, TR, and a greater than sign. So that is the opening tag, and then you add a closing tag. So basically, TR stands for table row. Simple, right? So inside the TR element, we are going to create table headings. So to create a table headings, so I want you to also notice the indentation, the way I'm indenting the code. Because the TR is supposed to be inside the table head, I indented it. And because the table head or the table heading is supposed to be in the table row, I'm also indenting again. So in order to create a table head, you use the TH element. So a less than sign, TH, and a greater than sign. So TH stands for table heading. It's simple. So TH, then add a closing tag. Yes, and in between it, you're going to put in a text. So in this case, it's going to be what? Index number. I'm going to copy and paste that right there. And now let me save it and let's see what will happen on our browser. So right now we see index number, but we don't see any border or anything. But let's continue. So that is the first table heading. Now let's copy this and paste it a number of times because we are going to do the same thing. So 1, 2, yes. Okay. So yeah, the next one is what? Candidate. So let me copy. So we're going to change this one from table from index number to what? Candidate. And then the final one is subject. So I'll change that as well. Now let's save it. Ctrl+S to save. Go to your browser and refresh or reload. And you can see right now we are seeing index number, we are seeing candidate, and we are seeing subject. But we are not seeing the table borders. So how do we do that? Now in order to fix that, we need to use something called attributes. And I explained this in my previous HTML tutorial. And I said that an attribute is basically extra information you give a tag to change how it looks or behaves. So in this case, when we look on our browser, we see that we are creating a table, alright, but we are not seeing the border. So we want to change how it looks. And in order to do that, we have to use what? An attribute. So in this case, we need to use the attribute on the table element because we want to change how the table looks. We don't want to change how the table header looks. We don't want to change how the table row looks. We want to change how the table itself looks. So we are going to focus on the table element. To be specific, the opening tag of the table element. And so we are going to focus on the opening tag. So you come here after the text, then you leave a space. Then you're going to type in the text border equal to and then double quotation mark 2 times. In between, you're going to type in 1. So in this case, we are saying that we want to create a border with a width of 1. So this is what an attribute is. In simple English, we are saying that the table border is equal to 1. The width of the table border is equal to 1. So the border here is called the attribute name. The equal to sign represents assignment. And then the text after the equal to sign is the attribute value. I hope it is understandable, right? So now let's save it, go to our browser and refresh. And you can see now we are seeing some borders. We are now noticing some borders. Let me see if I can zoom in. Yes, so we can zoom in. Good. Nice. So you are seeing index number, candidate, subject. But we are not done. We need to include the English and mathematics. So now let's go back once again. And then we are going to create another table row. So we are going to copy this. And then we are going to paste it. So make sure that you indent it properly. Like that. So this one is just going to be English here. And then mathematics. I'm going to remove this one because it's just two. Yes. So basically, this is the table head. And inside the table head, we have created 2 rows. So the first row is what we see here. And then the second row. Now let's save it and see what it looks like. Let's go to our browser and then refresh. So now we see English and mathematics. Okay, but it is not looking like what we have in the question. Let's look at the question. So you see that with English and mathematics, it is supposed to be under subject. So we need to fix that. And in order to do that, we are going to use another attribute. We are going to use another attribute. So in this case, I want you to notice something in the question. When you look at the boxes for each and every table heading, you notice that index number and candidate, the box in which they find themselves in, it is much larger than the others. So it means that we need to do the same thing. So you notice that index number and candidate, it takes in 2 cells or 2 cells in the table. So when you look to your right, you see that there is subject on top and then there's English below. And you can see that there's a line that separates it. So under normal circumstances, index number should have just taken one box like the way the data has over here. So you can see that everything here is just taking one box, but it has taken more than one. And we need to do the same thing. In order to do that, we need to use an attribute. And this time, we are going to use the attribute on the table heading because the table heading contains index number. So we need to use an attribute on that. So inside the table heading for index number, that is the TH we have here. You're going to add an attribute. And the attribute you're going to add is called row span. Then you add an equal to sign. Then a double quotation mark. And inside you add the value. That is how much row cells do you want it to take, or how many cells do you want it to take vertically downwards. So in this case, we want it to take 2 cells. Now save it, go to your browser and then look at what happens. So now you are seeing that it's beginning to look more like what we have in the question. We said row span equal to, so row span is an attribute that defines the number of row a table cell should span over. Yes, so in this case, you are saying that the index number should span over 2 row cells. So you know a row is, so basically one row should be on top somewhere here, then another row should be somewhere beneath the index number text. But since we added this attribute, it means that we want you to take 2 row cells. Now we are going to do the same thing with the candidate. So you are just going to copy this text and then you are going to paste it. And the same thing is going to happen. So make sure to save the changes. Go back to your browser and then refresh. And now you can see index number and candidates have taken 2 row cells. Now English and mathematics, they are now positioned where they are supposed to be positioned. But we now have an issue with the subject. So subject is supposed to take the space here, but it has just taken its own box. So basically, subject has to take 2 column cells, but it's just taking one at the moment. So we need to add another attribute to specify that. So we go back to our code, then we come to the table heading for subject. And this time we are not going to use row span, we are going to use what? Call span. So just like row span, call span does the same thing but for columns. So we are going to specify 2. Then you save it, go back to your browser and then refresh. And you can see, initially subject was taking one column cell, but we use an attribute to change that, and now it takes what, two column cells. So that is how you do it. I hope that what I'm explaining is understood. Yes, so we are done with the table heading. Now we can move on to the table body, which contains the table data. So right under the table heading, so this is the closing tag of the table heading. Right under it, you come down, then you indent about 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you create your table body. So that is T body. That is the opening tag, and then the closing tag, T body. Nice. Now inside the table body, we are going to do the same thing. So you notice that in the table head, we created rows. Then we added the data. So we are going to do the same thing. That is, you create a table row. And this time, we are not going to use TH. We are going to use a different element. We are going to use something called TD. So what is TD? TD stands for table data. So TH stands for table heading. But this time, we are not trying to input heading. We are trying to put in data. So instead of using TH, we are going to use TD. And then the first thing we are going to enter is what, the index number. So let's copy and paste that here. Now let's save it. And now let's look at it on our browser. So you can see we've added a table data, and the first data we've added is the index number. Next, we are going to add the candidates and then the scores for English and mathematics. So now let's continue. We are going to create another table data. So I'm going to do it about 3 more times. 1, 2, 3. Yes. And then we are going to change it. So we are going to change the second one from the index number value to what? The candidate's name. Then we change these. We'll change the rest to the score. So instead of 10,000, we're going to change it to the score of 56, and then the last one we're going to change it to what? 80. Now let's save it, go back to our browser and refresh. And you can see it yourself. Our index number, data, candidate, name, then the score for English and mathematics. So you can see that the table is now beginning to develop its shape, right? And structure. So we are going to do the same thing for the second candidate. So this time we just copy all this. So I'm going to copy all this, and I'll paste it right under. So this time we are just going to change the necessary part. So the index number, then we also change the name from Dennis Brown to Robert Asante. We also change the score from 58 to what? 85, right? Yes, so 85. And then the other one is what? 70. Control plus S to save. Go back to your browser and then reload the page. And you can see now we've added a second candidate with their particulars. Now we can finally say that we are ready for 2D, which says add a third entry to the table with your index number and full name for the index number and candidate columns respectively. Assign yourself any mark for the two subjects. So basically what 2D is telling us to do is, it's telling us to do what we've done already, but this time the data we are going to put in is going to be our own particular data. So we are going to do the same thing, that is copy the code we've done earlier. So I'm going to copy this table row for the third column or the third entry. And this time you're going to put in your index number. So I'm going to put mine as 101010. Yes. Then you're going to put in your name. So my name is what? John Winner. And then you're going to put in any random score you want. So me, I'm just going to put in 90 and then 100. Why not? Yeah, 100 in mathematics for me. Then you save it, go back to your browser and then reload. So this is the third entry we've entered. So let me even remove the 0 so that the number length will be the same. So I'll move the 0 at the end here. Let me save it. Yes. So now the number length is the same. I've added my own particular data here. So yours will be different. You add your name, then you choose any random score you want. Yes. So looking at the question and what we've done, I think that is all. That is the complete solution to this question. I hope that the way I explained it was easy to understand and grasp. So yes, if that was the case, then please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, hit on the subscribe button and the bell. And yeah, I think that is all. So I thank you guys for watching this video and see you guys in the next video.